Bill Gates said, "I will always choose a lazy person to do a difficult job because a lazy person will find an easy way to do it." What's a real-life example of this? I was working as a stockboy in a supermarket, and when we had to fill the milk cooler, people would bust open a 12-pack of milk cartons and put them in one by one. On my first day I just placed the 12-pack in the cooler and cut the plastic off on one side with my box cutter and yanked it from under it, and the look of the store manager and the other employee who was training me was pure bewilderment. From that day everyone did it my way. Start of lockdown. My 9-year-old son was having worksheets emailed to complete at home. One day, left him at the laptop doing his maths while I made some dinner with my 3-year-old daughter. Walked into the living room with his dinner to find him asking the Alexa all of his maths questions. Worked as a laborer at a nursery one summer. Daily tasks included manually watering 15,000 plants each day. Put together a back of the napkin plan to build an irrigation system and spent the next few weeks building it with some money from the boss. That system is still running 15 years later and does all the work now. I did automate myself out of the job and had to find another eventually. Couple years later got my engineering degree. I'm convinced engineers are inherently lazy people that will spend a disproportionate effort to make things easier. My brother-in-law spent a whole summer trying to figure out how to fix his sagging deck at the lake, which he could in theory crawl under and jack it up. It would have been a tunneling project. It's a 60x60 area all long 2x6 boards. Massive. I sat there long enough with enough beers in me to come up with the idea of just cutting a square out of the sagging area about 3 feet x 3 feet. Jacking it up, then rescrewing down the boards. He paints the thing every spring with a roller anyhow, so it's not like the square cut shows up. He thought I was a genius. I was just lazy. I had a math teacher that actively encouraged his students to be as lazy as possible. Defining lazy as actively searching for ways to do as minimal work as possible. His logic was that the way math is now, it could always be simplified and still work the same. Someone just needs to be lazy enough to find that. The clerk was asked to bring 145 white papers into the office. He doesn't want to count the papers manually, so he printed 145 blank sheets and took them in. When Carl Friedrich Gauss, the famous German mathematician and physicist, was in elementary school around 1784. His class was assigned the busy work task of adding all the numbers from 1 to 100, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. This usually kept the class quiet for half an hour or so. 7-year-old Carl was sitting quietly with the correct answer 50-50, while the rest of the class was just starting. So the surprised teacher asked him how he came up with the solution. He replied that he added 1 and 100 and got 101. Then he added 2 and 99. And got 101. 3 plus 98 101. And so on. He realized there was a pattern of 50 pairs of numbers with each pair adding up to 101. And 50x 101 5050. It took me like 3 months. But I automated a data pipeline to extract data, clean it up, and spit it out in an Excel or PDF format to one of our clients. I walked over to shoot the speep with the lady who handles my client and gives me tasks, and she told me we make 40K off them every month for that automated job. Beep. I need to go start my own business. We had to hold a thermometer in water in chemistry class. It probably was only 20-minute experiment, but your arms get tired after a couple minutes and you can't let the thermometer touch the bottom of the pen or it won't get an accurate reading. So instead of sucking it up and just holding the thermometer, My lab partner built a contraption out of lab books and paper clips to somehow hold the thermometer in the water without it touching bottom. It was the stupidest looking thing you would ever see in a lab class, and our professor even walked over and said if it looks stupid. Sounds stupid. But it works. Then it isn't stupid. My lab partner and I joked that he wasn't talking about the contraption but the intellect of my lab partner. One of my favorite examples is Andy Kim. And I'd like to preface this by saying that I don't think Kim is lazy so much as a genius. Andrew Yue Kim was a singer/songwriter who became famous under the stage name Andy Kim. He achieved success writing songs for bands like the Archies. Possibly most notably Sugar. After his success he coasted for a while until his record label dropped him for lack of output. At that point he created his own label and cranked out hits like Rock Me Gently. When they saw this, the big record labels then bought his label under the assumption that they would then profit off of the songs he wrote and performed. He then very shortly stopped writing songs and largely lived off the sale of his label. Work smarter, not harder. When I was in college I had a job at an Italian fast food place with a reputation for its breadsticks. They came in frozen and needed a bit to thaw. So we'd take a giant 3x4 feet aluminum baking sheet, spread them out in a single layer with no spaces and cover it with a plastic bag. Then leave it sit in the walk-in overnight. The next day you'd have to get a pair of tongs and move each stick to a new tray, turning them over. Then cover the new tray with the bag and let them sit on racks for a couple of hours before brushing on the garlic butter sauce. This was tedious enough that you'd usually be ready to brush the butter on the first tray as soon as you turned the last tray. I was given this task for the first time one morning and just did not want to deal with it. I realized if I put the second tray upside down on top of the first one then turned it over and took the first tray out, I got exactly the same results. Blew the boss's mind when I did the 3-hour job in about 15 minutes. I was given a 0.05/hour raise. If I need directions, I'm not asking a man with one tooth. I'm asking a man with one leg. 'Cause he definitely knows the easiest way to get there. Yup. If there's a shortcut, that one-legged peeper knows where it is. You won't be hopping fences neither. I plug clocks in at midnight so they're already set. Eating dinner out of the pot so there's fewer dishes to wash. I worked goods in for an aircraft manufacturer as a summer job at university. Parts would arrive. We'd open them and key in all the details into a terminal. That bit was long-winded. I discovered the terminal keyboard has assignable shortcuts, and set up a bunch of them for all the boilerplate such that keying in an item was about 6 keystrokes. Saved myself and my workmate hours every day, which we would spend pranking each other, other warehouse staff and staff at other sites. Worked in a local adult education center. One of my main tasks was to make calculation about how many people enlisted for a course. How many of them got discounts, unemployed G. How many men/women/age etc. That was needed to calculate upcoming courses fees etc. That was my only work there and I hated it. This was in early 90s. So PCs were a thing in our offices, but I had no idea how to write a program or use a database to use this informations. Lucky as I am, our center had an interesting policy. When you want to educate yourself, you can attend that class for free. And when it's during the work time, then this is work time, as long as my supervisor is okay with that. She was. So I spent 3 months studying database structures, scripting, coding etc. I told my tutor what I want to do and he helped me to write a script that grabs all necessary informations from the course's database, copy that into another database, and then I went crazy and wrote code that was insane. I implemented what-if scenarios thanks to filters. At the end I was able to do my work. That needed 6 HRS a day within 15 minutes. I mean, before that it took an hour to have all the necessary informations to have a how many unemployed single parent women does it need to make the costs of that course even. I had everything back then. Now you want statistics how many single parent disabled foreign women at the age of 80 to 90 are needed for the next 2 years to keep the ornithology course running? Sure. No problem. Clickety-click. Done. After that, I started the PC in the morning. Grabbed all the data. Ran my script. Was done within 15 minutes and then read the book I brought from home. At the end of the day I gave my supervisor several dozens of papers. Statistics. Predictions etc. and said that was a lot of work. And went home. My supervisor was super happy with me because I did so much more now and was super effective. I was invited to my friend's yearly apple picking. It was a full day of apples and kids and filling a truck for cider. I'm lazy and suggested we make the process more efficient with tarps on the ground. We managed in 2 hours what historically took all day. We didn't even get to the picnic lunch. Essentially, I ruined apple picking. Walkie-talkies. In every job I've ever had, these things make your day far less labor-intensive if used correctly. I had a manager in my 20s who detested the fact I turned a 2-hour process into a 15-minute process. It exposed how much lazier he was compared to me because when the higher-ups learned from other people at my level that I created the program, they took me aside and told me he took credit for it. They asked me how I felt about that. I told them what decisions they make regarding the manager's character is their decision. Just put yourselves in my shoes and consider it from that angle. They did nothing and I took the concept to a competitor who invested the money into making the program more robust and proprietary. My name was line 1 on the patent and trademark documents and I did well enough to semi-retire at 45. I credit Lee Iacocca for the inspiration. He went through a similar problem with higher-ups at Ford and his answer was to take his brain to Chrysler who would value it. In Australia, explorers discovered a mountain that was taller than Mt Kosciuszko, which was thought to be the tallest mountain in Australia. Rather than cause confusion by telling everyone a new tallest mountain had been found, they simply named the new mountain Mt Kosciuszko and renamed the original to something else. Me. I automate SPEEP all the time at work to make daily routine jobs more easy. I write manuals with screenshots with arrows indicating where to click or where to fill in what. Whenever I write a manual, I assume that whoever reads it is a complete idiot so that whenever customers call for the same questions again, I just send them to the online manual I created. No need to type it out again by email or explain it again by phone. Years ago as a student I got a job stocking shelves. Guys were carrying the heavy boxes. Put them on the floor and bend each time to pick up the items to put on the shelves. I was maybe a light 100 pounds woman and carrying the boxes was just killing me physically. So one day I had an idea. I put the box on an old desk chair and rolled it around. No more carrying and no more bending. Funny thing is that, instead of doing the same thing, most of the guys called me lazy and kept carrying the heavy boxes. Just to prove how strong they were. Now they have special rolling carts to do the job. The entire miscellaneous kitchen tools section at bed, bath, and beyond. I don't need an avocado slicer or a lemon squeezer or an automatic chopper/dicer. But lazy old me definitely puts them to good use. I had to carry groceries into the house when I was a kid. I didn't want to make multiple trips. So I tied several bags to the belt loops on my pants to do it in one trip. Why didn't you just run your belt through the bag handle loops? Would save a crap load of time. My brother gave my oldest nephew $10 a week if he did all his chores without needing to be told or complaining. One day he gets home early from work and sees the neighbor kid tossing a bag in the trash. He asks him what he is doing and the kid says he gets $5 a week to take care of a few chores. My nephew outsourced his chores. I'm doing it right now. Automated data cleaning in Python. My co-workers don't know about it. So something that takes me 10 minutes at most takes them 2 hours. Edit. For everyone who says I should share my code. I have. I even set up a private GitHub space for my team. Some have taken it up. But others including management do not like it. I think they feel a little threatened. Water is super lazy and will literally find the easiest way to go anywhere every single time. Wait until you learn about the path light travels through. Light takes the path of least time. That's not hyperbole or anything. Light will literally follow the shortest path based entirely on the time it takes to get there. An engineer spent hours developing a program so they could start the coffee pot from their desk and not have to wait for coffee when arriving in the break room. My ex-boss gave me an Excel sheet. 124,000 rows Excel sheet. Had all the company customer data per row, twice. In some of those duplicates there was an error. She needed me to go over the list one row by row to check for mistakes and mark all the faulty entries I could find. Through 124,000 rows. She wanted me to do that using the arrow down key and my mouse. I thanked her. I sat down. Invested half an hour into Google. Copy-pasted some parts of this formula. Then some parts of that. Finally I had figured out the formula. I double-clicked the tiny rectangle so that the formula gets applied on all rows. Worked like a charm. I stood up. Got myself a coffee. Talked to some colleagues. Then I went to my boss. She had anticipated that I would need 3 days for this task. When I was back less than an hour later, she thought I hadn't understood the task or maybe a follow-up question. I will never forget the expression on her face when I told her I was done. There were 6 faulty entries. A year and a half later I enrolled into computer science at university where I will finish my undergrad this summer. Imagine doing it their way to find 6 beeping errors. I don't know if this is a true story, but kind of fits your request. There was a manufacturing plant that made toothpaste. One year for some reason there ended up being an unusually high number of empty boxes being shipped out. So in order to stop that from happening, the head of the company hired a couple engineers to develop a system to catch any empty boxes so they didn't get shipped with the boxes that actually had the toothpaste tubes in them. The engineers developed a system that if the box weighed below a certain amount the system would stop and a worker would have to go remove the box and start everything up again. The person in charge loved the idea and implemented it immediately. And right from the get-go the number of empty boxes shipped dropped to near zero. The head of the company wanted to go see the system in action, so he goes and visits the plant one day and notices a huge fan right by the assembly line. Very confused as it wasn't hot, he asked the plant manager why the fan was there. The plant manager said the workers were tired of stopping what they were doing to remove an empty box, so they just hooked up a fan to blow the empty boxes off the scale before the system recognized it was empty and shut everything off. So laziness led to a more efficient and cost-effective plan. A few years back my sister was doing some hardware testing and validation. She was working with a bunch of Excel tables. When she found out that I was doing some automatic XLS creating/editing for my job, she had me create a script for her job. 2 to 3 days of eye-killing boring work done in 20 seconds. She kept it a secret for a while. The worst task became the best task. She eventually shared it with the company as there were many others that did a similar job. And then she got promoted. In conclusion, her laziness helped with her promotion. My greenhouse watering system. I would spend an hour per day watering the garden. 30 hours per month. So for 50. I set up a PVC watering system in a few hours. Now I just turn on the spigot and watch while I smoke a joint. Programming away work is the real-life example of this. Genius, invented the shovel. Lazy genius, invented the backhoe. As a kid I usually didn't like reading, so when I was forced to read I would lock myself in my room and pretend like I was reading, and I know all of you are about to say that that's not doing the work, and to that I say that I am forced to read the books because my parents always make me tell them what the book is about, and I can't lie either cause they know the book that I read cause they read it beforehand. So how did I get away with not reading the books, you may ask, and to that I say audiobooks. These glorious pieces of audio have saved me the time trying to understand the long pages on my own and have made me understand the chapters of the books faster than I could have read them and trying to force my little kid mind to understand it on my own.